Hello, everyone, and Merry Christmas. We didn't prepare this, but we're wearing green and red shirts. Sorry, it's just kind of how it worked out. Today, we're going to be talking about Season 2 of Avatar. Yes, indeed, this is our Avatar Book 2 review book, because they call them books. This is Earth, by the way. We finished watching Season 1 Water some time ago, and we just finished up with Book 2 Earth. And I gotta tell you, initial gut reaction is, wow.
You liked it.
Wow.
I knew you would.
I'm very scared to be as honest as I want to be about this, because I don't really have anything negative to say. Like, it was astoundingly good, and even all of the little, like, nitpicky things that I had wrong with Season 1, like, are fixed in Season 2. And what's so interesting is that the comments said that they would be, and they were right. Because after we did our Season 1 review, I talked about how, the world building was really incredible. Like, I don't know if I touched on it too much, but I like the animation, I like the voice acting. Like, everything felt right. I didn't like that there was definitely moments where it felt childlike, where it felt like it was being dumbed down. And a lot of the comments responded and said, I can see that. Wait until you get Season 2, because they fixed a lot of these issues.
And they did.
And they did. They really did. The show, and it's hard to explain, it's not that the show changes like a wild amount, but they drop off some of that kid stuff.
Yeah, they do.
And the issues that the characters are facing are so, like, massive, and they're on a very mature scale. Like, it's about overthrowing, like, a government, like that. Almost the entire second half of this season takes place in Ba Sing Se, and it's all about, like, how there's a shadow government that's actually controlling everything. And
the king doesn't even know there's a war going on.
The king doesn't even know stuff. Like, there's all this stuff, and, it's still told through the perspective of children's eyes, but, like, it's dealing with some much heavier stuff, and you lose some of those little things from Season 1 where I was like, stop teaching me, the 7-year-old thing of, like, don't steal a thing. So they actually stopped doing that.
And there's mature themes that are shown well. Like, everything with Appa and
there's just some good scenes in general. Like, one of the earliest moments in Season 2 where I was like, oh wow, like, there's a spot where I think it's when they've just finished up at the library, and they come outside of the library, and Aang discovers that they muzzled Appa and gets so pissed off that he enters the Avatar state. And Katara actually bringing him back to normal. It was like a very impactful, emotional moment. And those are not rare in the second season. Like, it's just really, really well done. And one of the coolest things is that in Season 1, one of the things I had talked about in the first review was that I wrote off a few things as basically filler. And I'm learning that they weren't. That this show was actually far better planned than I had even thought. And I thought it was well planned to begin with. But we're seeing characters and locations and little references to stuff from Season 1 in Season 2. And I'm like, oh, wow. That character wasn't just, like the King Boomy. I was like, King Boomy's just like a crazy dude that they made for this filler episode. But okay. But then he's actually an integral part, and we're revisiting the same cities, and we're seeing how they've changed in the time since the adventure began. I'm just really astounded how good this was, basically.
The episodes I had seen from this season were early, but I didn't see, like, the first few. They were, like, a couple in. So it's nice to kind of see the ones I missed, to see how certain characters get introduced. Like Toph, because I knew about her, but I didn't know how they found her.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know anything about the end of it, so it was really cool to see all of that kind of happen.
The end of it's crazy. I mean, you're just kind of like, oh my god, like, there's all these things happening, and you're I mean, you're really, really rooting for Zuko.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're really rooting that, because you know that he's going to come around.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know when. And it's one of those things that when you're watching, you know, you see what his uncle sees, his little metamorphosis, and you're rooting for him so hardcore. And then at the very end, you know, he's like, Azula, I'm your brother. I'll help you. It's probably obvious this will contain spoilers for season 2 and probably season 1. But yeah, I was just, everything is so good, and a lot of it comes down to just planning. When there's little references and things that are done well, it helps make that world feel more alive and more real, and they just continued to do that so well. There was one thing that I wasn't sure of, but I think, and I didn't talk to you about it. Zuko and Iroh, they have continued to use like false names and stuff because they're like hiding their identities. One of the names that Zuko has used is Lee.
Yeah.
Do you know where that name came from?
The boy.
It's the boy. It was something that I had noticed whenever he had given his name. I was like, I wonder if that's a reference to something. And I had thought about it, and I thought it was the kid, but I wasn't sure, and I looked it up because I wanted to get a recap, and I was like, oh my god, that is the kid's name. So, like, there's all these little tiny things, too, that, like, you know, you have to be paying attention for, and they're in there. The other thing that's really cool is that they don't spend a whole lot of time, like, on the training aspect. It's just, as episodes progress, they get better at their respective elements. And there's some overt things, like, you know, Toph being able to suddenly do metal. But the more interesting thing is from, like, an animation standpoint, that you're seeing different techniques and different moves.
Different ways they can use their elements.
Yeah. And it doesn't ever feel stale. It's not like
they're always using
the same thing. Yeah. And it felt like that a little bit, in my opinion, for Fire, and especially in, like, Season 1. It's like, I can punch and kick fire, and that's it. But then in this one, you know, Iroh uses, like, the flame breath.
Yeah. And,
like, that's super cool. But what was really interesting is seeing all the other characters do these different things that they have never shown up on the show before,
like,
and they're not addressing them.
Yeah, like, Katara went through the training at the North Pole, and then he was like, oh, you're good enough to be Aang's teacher now. But there's a moment, and I forget which episode it was, where she is fighting, and it's just like, look at all the stuff she can do now, and she started just barely learning to waterbend in Book 1.
Yeah, and that was actually, that was a criticism I don't know if I ever really voiced from the first season. I felt that was weird, when you've had the first season, and there's this master waterbender, and Katara is basically as good as that person. That felt weird to me, because I'm like, well, you haven't been doing this, like, all that long, you know? But, I mean, she's come into her own. Aang is, and it makes a little more sense for Aang, because, like, he's the Avatar. He's just supposed to be extremely good at everything.
But it's also, like, for a while I was like, oh, he's always defaulting to air, and he's not doing everything else. Yeah. But he does start to do some of the other elements as he's been learning them more and more. I feel like he's relying less on air. Yeah.
But that's all reflected in, like, you know, the animation and what they're doing. And, again, it's interesting because, like, in Dragon Ball, you know, everything's got to, like, have, like, a name. You know, like, I'm doing this move and I'm going to announce
the solar flare move.
Yeah, I'm going to announce this thing, even if it's only used, like, once in the series. And here, there's not moves. It's just they are interacting. And it's cool, and it keeps you looking out for that thing. You know, it loses some of it, I guess, that you would have in Dragon Ball, because in Dragon Ball, like, if someone's going to use a specific move, and you're like, oh, he's using the thing, and in this, it's just like, what the crap was that? That happen? But it's exciting in I guess, a different way. Also, Toph is introduced in this season, and Toph's a great character. Yeah. Really, really cool. Just the dynamic of all the characters is so well done. And again, it comes back to the fact that the show was so well planned. I'm really blown away. I understand now why people love Avatar so much. Like, I saw the first season, and I was like, yeah, it's a good show. I have some problems with it, but like, you know, I can see that it's good. You got an 85 on the test. But then, you know, we get to season 2 and I'm like, oh, you've been studying hard. You know, like I'm looking through your test and I'm like, you don't have any problems and I feel like you deserve extra credit, you know, so it went from like an 85 to a 105 and I'm like, it's really good. It's just really good. Like, and were there problems in season 2? I mean, maybe, but they're so overshadowed by the good that I can't even recall them. It's just interesting stuff, and I'm happy that we're finally watching this show. I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I agree with you. I'm excited to see where it goes. There's a very few small things I know about the next book, but nothing major. Like, just small little things I've seen on the internet.
Yeah. As always, please keep your discussions just to seasons 1 and 2, book 1 and 2.
Because we read the comments.
We
and
do
we
read
don't
the
wanna
comments,
be spoiled.
and we read the comments with trust. We trust that you will not do this. If you see someone that has spoiled something, please just report it as spam. After that happens like a few times, that comment's just automatically removed. So then we don't even have to see it. So yeah, we're excited to go into book 3. This was always a fun part for me in Dragon Ball, is when I would ask you, like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
So, what do you think is going to happen in book 3?
I can't say.
Oh, you'd kind of know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's...
Kind of. Like,
Oh.
there's things I've seen, and I'm wondering how it gets there.
So, my biggest thing for book 3 is that since the beginning of the show, like, framing Zuko as, like, the nemesis, like, from the very beginning of the show, I was like, okay, he's going to join them. Like, that's just what I thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it seems to me. It's like, he will join up with them, even if it's, like, at the very end, I don't know. But it seems to me that he is going to be the defining person who ends up helping the team. Sure. The other thing that I've thought for a long time is that General Iroh is going to die. I just assumed he was going to die. I was like, this is like the wise old uncle. He is my favorite character by a long shot. Absolutely, like, no contest between him and the other characters. Since season 1, he was my favorite. In season 2, he just climbed up the ladder. Iroh's my favorite by a substantial margin. But I kept thinking, I'm like, especially when him and Zuko... When Azula came and shot him, I was like, that's where he's going to die. And then he was fine. I was like, oh, he's alive. And I keep waiting, and I'm like, I feel like they're going to use maybe his death as the final metamorphosis of Zuko, or maybe there's some other way to do it. I mean, for what it's worth, I hope that Iroh stays around forever, because he's the best character. But, you know, that's my assumption, is that they're going to use him as a plot element, and that will fuel... like Zuko turning on his own people and becoming a traitor. I don't know. It's been interesting to watch his path too, because there's even an entire episode devoted to it, which was cool. And him talking to Katara in the cave and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to ramble forever, but this is great. And if you're maybe decided to watch this even though you haven't seen the show, and you're just like, I just wanted to see what you have to say, watch Avatar. It's good. I have full faith in season 3 now. Season 1 was good. It just wasn't, my favorite thing. Season 2 is. It's astoundingly good, and I'm super pumped to see what happens in season 3.
Yeah, me too.
That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Talk about seasons 1 and 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender down below, and once we finish up season 3, which is fire, we'll do another review. Thanks for watching, and as always, let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?